Welcome you all, dear friends. It's with pleasure we present this textbook in History and Civics to you to facilitate its teaching and learning and make learning for the children a joyful experience. This particular book is different from its earlier counterpart. It has many innovative features. It has been presented in a different manner. There are activity based matter here that you will find in this particular book, and that will go a long way in making history a joyful experience indeed. I wish to highlight some of its innovative features which will facilitate learning and make it indeed a joyful experience for the children. We have adopted a constructivist approach while writing this particular book. The textbook not only is colorful but also has relevant pictures, maps, and charts. Probably for the first time, this particular textbook has boxes with titles such as "Do you know?", "Do it?", "Try this", etc., as this will make learning easy, interesting, and may create love for history. Any textbook doesn't take place in any vacuum. It has a philosophical basis, and that philosophical basis is found in the Primary Education Curriculum 2012. However, we all know that history cannot be understood without geography. So, therefore, the first innovative feature of this particular textbook is the first chapter deals with the relationship between history and geography. Without geographical context, learning history may bring in certain problems, and therefore while we explain evolution of history, we also put it in the geographical context. Our students must know the relationship between the two, hence is the inclusion of the first chapter. Why do we need to teach ancient Indian history? Our children must be aware of the rich cultural heritage of our country. They must be well informed about the traditions, cultural norms, and healthy practices of our society. Such understanding creates a sense of pride, and in the long run, it helps to develop in them a sense of appreciation for social and national integration, which is one of the objectives of our educational system. As all of you know, globalization has indeed transformed national trade into world trade. India had trade relations with many distant countries of the world even in ancient times. Students may be given learning experience that will help them to analyze the continuity and change in international trade. This is again another innovative feature that you will find in this particular textbook. While dealing with civics, we need to explain to the students the nature of governmental organization in India. We have the center, the states, and the local governments with different subjects allotted to them, and they are expected to function within the jurisdiction allocated to them by the Constitution. The teachers who take special interest in teaching civics must understand the Constitution. Our Constitution establishes rule of law. That means in this country, the law is supreme. Law prevails over everything. We have replaced rule of men by rule of law, and that is why we need to inculcate respect for laws, and that value we have been trying to inculcate among the students right from the third standard. Women's participation is an important aspect of civics education. In this particular textbook, you will find many references to women's participation. We expect you to use it and encourage children to learn about gender equality, special efforts made by women to bring about changes, their participation in public life, and thereby trying to secure a place of honor and dignity in the society. Why local government? The six standard civics textbooks mainly deals with local government. We have deliberately used the word local government and not local self government because now the right from the beginning, that is from 1947, India gained independence and therefore there is self rule at all levels of the government. The entire governance is being carried out by the representatives of the people, and therefore there is no special need to say, to use the term self only for local governments. At the same time, the civics curriculum and the content in the civics textbook is presented in a very, very innovative manner. There is a special chapter, that is the first chapter, that deals with society, sociability, social interdependence, so on and so forth, for the reason that children must be encouraged to appreciate their social environment. Civic values such as tolerance, understanding, cooperation, respect for diversity, equality, and justice, and with special reference to gender justice, gender equality, need to be inculcated. Content in the textbook facilitates the same. You will find abundant references in the textbook. I request you to use them and see that children develop a kind of a spirit to learn them and appreciate them. The study of environment must include the understanding of the social and political institutions that surround children. They find many institutions around them, irrespective of whether they live in a village or in a city or in a metropolitan. Political and social institutions are an integral part of their growing. So therefore, they must learn, why do the institutions exist? What relationship do they have with those institutions, and how does that institution facilitates their well-being? In that respect, it's important to understand the relationship between the child, the society, and the various social institutions and political institutions which are close to the child's environment. Local governments facilitate deepening and widening of democracy, leading to more inclusion. Nowadays, we are talking about inclusive democracy. What do we mean by it? Inclusive democracy reduces marginalization. Inclusive democracy takes everyone along with. It tries to bring every social group which had remained so far out of the periphery or marginalized. We try to bring them into the mainstream. Here in this particular textbook, you will find the content that helps children to understand and appreciate the importance of inclusion and taking everybody along with us. That in the long run may help to bring in equality and justice. The textbook content helps students to adopt a more rational approach towards social, economic, and political issues such as reservation, women representation, proactive public life. We want our children to be publicly active. Indifference, apathy about the public life is to be eliminated. Otherwise, in the future, the children would become self centered. In order to create a right approach in them and allow them to understand public issues in a rational manner, we need to teach them that issues do appear, issues do exist, but instead of being emotional about it, we need to try to solve them in a very rational and logical manner. If this practice is inculcated in them right from the beginning, right from now, maybe in the future there will be more research on issues like this that will help even all of us to solve these problems in a better manner. Matter on administrative reforms is included in the textbook. The reason being, we want to increase the students' confidence that change is possible and it can be brought about by our efforts and initiative. The very idea of freedom, the very meaning of freedom is to bring about a change, take leadership, take initiative, and bring about a transformation in the environment in which you exist. That exactly is the reason why matter on administrative reforms is included in the civics textbook. This textbook is a very small yet meaningful effort and exercise to empower students socially, politically, as well as economically. They must understand the importance of using local resources to solve local problems. They must understand that local institutions help them to improve their environment. Issues like public health, education can be sorted out if local governments act very, very efficiently. In order to make local governments efficient, naturally, people living in the local area must take initiative and find a solution to the problems. Local governments are important in many ways, but one reason why are they important is they help democratization of the society. They bring power to the lowest level of the society. Access to power is easily possible if local governments are strengthened. In India, we are talking about now, as I said just few minutes before, that we are moving towards more and more inclusive democracy. What do we mean by that? We want to bring in everybody in the decision making process, in the decision making process as well as a political process that will allow them to make decisions for themselves. Democracy has a trust in people. Democratic idea begins with the individual well-being and ends with the individual well-being. This is possible only when people are empowered adequately, and that empowerment begins at the school level. Hence is this effort. I hope you will all appreciate, and with these inputs you will make learning and teaching a joyful experience, enrich yourself, and thereby enrich the knowledge of the students also. Thank you very much.
Hello everybody. Myself Preeti Khandelwal. I am the assistant teacher from Dr. D.Y. Patil Public School, Pimpri, Pune. I am here to talk to you about the objectives and constructivist approach that is covered in the Standard 6 History and Civics textbook. Now, as we proceed further, on the very first slide, you are able to see all the important points that we are going to cover in this session. The very first point that we are dealing is introduction, then background behind the change in curriculum, guiding principles, then the objectives of curriculum and syllabus of Standard 6 History, then objectives of curriculum and syllabus of Standard 6 Civics, and then the constructivist approach. So, let us begin our session to get a little background and the details of these subjects. So, on the very second slide, you are able to see with the certain things that we are going to discuss. Now, as we talk about the certain points that are given here, I would like to brief you that history is a story of man in context to the place and time. History is not mere explanation of the past events, but it is trying to convey the relation of man with its past and even future. It is an unending dialogue between the past and present. History is subject of curiosity rather. It is always considered as a boring one, but I must tell you teachers that it is a subject full of curiosity which will always awaken that feeling in children to know more and more about ourselves. It is the cultural identity for us. In order to understand our present, we have to understand our past, because on that background only we construct our future. Though history is a story of the past, it remains alive because we keep reading it, we keep knowing it, and even we understand the details of our life through that. It enables society to avoid mistakes. When we learn history, we understand that where we went wrong in the past, what were our mistakes, and through that we understand that what made our country to be under the control of various rulers, and then what struggle was made, and through that we learn what is right, what are wrong things, and that makes our present and future a better place to live. Students can understand even our rich cultural heritage through the study of history. Even we can create students as the capable and good citizens who have that civic sense and the understanding for the responsible citizens. Even we make them the important part of the society. They understand these details through that. Education is a continuously changing process. It is essential to take into consideration the chronological, logical happenings and sequencing of the things. So through this, the attempt is made to understand these all the details. Now, when we talk about the education process, let us study about the part of the background. So let us have a look at the next slide. And the next slide tells us the background. Why there is a need to bring the changes in the curriculum. What is the base on which our curriculum is based? Even our new textbook is based. Let us understand these details, and as a teacher, it is an important thing to understand these details. So when we talk about, we must understand that beginning of the school education is the base of our life. It is the milestone in the path of the development of the student. Curriculum assumes important role in the desired outcome. It is bringing up the tremendous changes in the personality of the child, and that is what the base of education is. And so it is an important part to bring the quality education. And so every time efforts are taken at the national level, at the state level, through appointing various committees to put their inputs so that the education becomes an important tool to bring the development and even an all-round development of the child. So for that, the state has undergone various changes with the curriculum and its policies. So let us take an cursory view to understand these various policies and various details that are being introduced to us. The first very thing that I would like to talk about here is the National Education Policy of 1968. This policy was formed on the basis of the recommendations that were given by the National Education Commission under the chairmanship of Dr. Kothari. This policy facilitated uniformity in the language policies and patterns of the education prevalent. And this policy has a remarkable role to play in the education system of India. Then, based on that, the primary education curriculum of 1968 was introduced. At that time in Maharashtra, there were separate curricula. So, this policy or this primary education curriculum of 1968 tried to bring them all together. It made an attempt to bring the uniformity and tried to cope up with the national systems and even tried to bring the competences to achieve the objective. Then the inclusion of education in the concurrent schedule. This was an important landmark because now it was not just the topic for the state or only for the nation, but here they both had to decide togetherly. And so, whenever there was change introduced at the national level, of course, it was necessary that at the state level too the changes are introduced. And so, at the various time, the efforts were made to change the curriculum according to the national policies. And so on, various policies came into, for example, National Education Policy of 1986. Then it was based on again the competency based primary education of 1995. It aimed as per the state the things should be achieved. Then the National Education Policy of the 2000, then the primary education curriculum of 2004, and so on. There were various ways the revisions were made. Then an important landmark came in 2009 when right to education was introduced. This brought in an effort to bring all the people, all the children into the stream of education. Those who were deprived, those who were not at all a part of education, they were brought into the mainstream through the right to education. And that played an important role in framing the curriculum of Maharashtra. Then I must even mention here, dear parents and teachers, that this was the first step by Maharashtra. Maharashtra government is the first state to adopt the right to education and all the principles of right to education in the education system. And all this way it proceeded further in even implementing the continuous comprehensive evaluation that which we follow for standard 1 to 8 is a part of RTE. And under that we always tried that nobody should be deprived of education. No detention policy, that is also a part of this system only. Then when we move ahead into this same slide, you are able to see the points like globalization. So at the global level, whatever the changes are brought in, every now and then whatever new things are introduced, it made an attempt to include all of them into the system and update the knowledge to the students. That's why all the things are a part of our curriculum, and so accordingly the textbooks also are revised. So we need that even the students must be able to meet the challenges and whatever the new things are introduced, and so the efforts are made. Then the management of information, that is, whatever the new knowledge is introduced, that must be arranged as in the ascending order from the lower classes to the higher, and so the information is put into the textbooks as per the age appropriate and as per the requirement of the content, and so on it goes in the ascending order to the higher classes. Then the lifelong education. We all believe and we all know that education is a lifelong process. It doesn't end only with the school education. It continues even after that. Whatever education is taken in the school is used then at once the child walks out of the school, because here he learns and he once he walks out, he applies that knowledge in the outside world. So, it is just not the end of education, but the beginning of education rather. And so, even these all efforts for the curriculum are made with the point of view to understand these things. Then distribution of resources with mutual understanding. So whatever the resources are available, using them appropriately, understanding what are the resources available, then how to use them, how to understand and use them wisely. All these aspects are a part of our curriculum and the textbook. These values are inculcated among the children through these curriculum, and even at the same time it takes efforts to make children to use the technology. We know this very well, that technology is a two-edged sword. If we have some plus points, positive aspects, same way we find the negative aspects of it too. So the efforts are made that the technology should be introduced, and even the children must be made to use the various resources that are available. Getting the things or maybe information from various resources is an important aspect of our curriculum. Then inculcation of values. Now I must tell you, dear teachers, that the values that we are talking here are not the general basic values that we know and believe in. Here the meaning of values is to inculcate the values that are introduced in our constitution. So all these efforts are made into our curriculum and through our textbooks, that as per the constitution, expected objectives will be achieved through our education system. Then the life skills. We are aware that all the life skills, that is empathy or respect to the constitution, maybe the self-awareness, critical thinking, coping with the emotions, coping with stress, somewhere or other through our textbook, directly or indirectly, they are introduced to students. We may not find them directly somewhere to locate, but indirectly they are included in our syllabus as well as our textbook textual parts. Then the universalization and inclusiveness. The number of efforts are made to bring the children in the mainstream of education who were always deprived of education, and the inclusiveness is achieved by bringing them into the same limelight. They are no more deprived. The efforts are taken that they may not be with the feeling that they are somewhere different, but they are actually a part of education. Even the efforts are taken that nobody should feel that if they are offering the education, they are doing some favor unto them, but it is our right. And so these feelings are inculcated. Efforts are taken to bring all the deprived into the mainstream. Then of course the next most important, which is frequently discussed, is the learning without burden. Now this issue was brought to the anvil through the report in 1993 by the Yashpal Committee, which introduced learning without burden. And so under that we have introduced the CCE, where the largely we take the care that the child is evaluated at two levels, that is the formative evaluation and summative evaluation. We are evaluating the child for every effort that he is giving, for its classroom approach, for its oral approach, its participation in the discussions whenever the learning outcome is concerned, or whenever there are the interactions in the school and the class, its group discussion, and in every field, whatever the responses are given by the children are respected. They are a part and parcel of this system. However, even the additional measures are taken so that the learning process becomes enjoyable. They no more feel it as a burden, and so the efforts are taken. Then the next point that you see talks about constructivism, and I must tell you here that our textbook is largely framed on the basis by following the principle of constructivism. So that point we are going to discuss towards the end of this session. So moving ahead, let us move to the next slide where you are able to see the guiding principles. Now what are these guiding principles? Dear teachers, these principles are introduced to us by the National Curriculum Framework 2005, and it is expected that the states will try to inculcate and absorb these principles as a part of their curriculum, and so do our state has introduced and has tried to inculcate them into our textbooks through our curriculum. The very first thing that has been said by the guiding principle, the very first point that it highlights is linking knowledge to the life outside the school. It was always observed that what the child learns in the school has nothing to do with its outside world. There was no one-to-one relation. So the efforts are now to be made that whatever the child learns in school is somewhere or other practically applicable in the outside world. He or she must be able to use it outside the school. Outside the school means only in the practical life. And so the efforts are made such. Then the second very point talks to you about ensuring that learning is shifted away from rote methods. Traditionally, children were judged on the basis of their memorization of answers. More the excellent or the excellent performance is shown in the memorization, we used to consider the child as intelligent. But that was just a rote learning. How much the child understood, how much the child followed was not judged. But here now the focus is given to understand the understanding level of the children. It is seen how much child is getting. Is he able to interpret? Is he able to apply the knowledge that he has understood? And so our syllabus is largely based on understanding of the terms and the content and its application. And so various activities are introduced here. Once you go through the text, you will understand that the efforts are taken to make children participate in discussions. They are also taken to understand, think, and express their views. And mind this well, teachers, that their opinions are to be respected. Whatever they express is their outcome, and so that must be accepted. Then enriching the curriculum to provide the overall development of children rather than remain textbook centric. Textbook is just the medium. It is not the end of everything. So, efforts must be made to go beyond the textbook. We must try to get additional information about the topics. Whatever the topics are discussed, let the children find out additional information. Teachers also should be well equipped with all this information, knowledge of various reference books, websites, so that they can give all this knowledge, and even children will collect information through that. And then even